When we think about discipleship, often we talk about the power of one person investing their life into the life of another. But that's really only understood when that is done in the context of community. One of my favorite verses in the New Testament is in Hebrews 10:24 and 25. I call it my salad verse because there's so much lettuce in it. Actually, the writer 3 times uses the exhortation, let us. And the first one is in the first phrase. Let us consider how we might stir one another up to love and good works. One translation says stir one another up. Another says how we might stimulate one another. And another says how we might spur one another on. And I like that idea of spurring. It's like a man who gets on a horse and he has to take the back of his boot and spur the horse on. And it's that visual picture that sometimes spurring is painful and even a willingness to do or say the difficult thing that needs to take place when we're in discipleship in community. So let us consider how to spur one another on is the first let us. The second is in the next phrase, and let us not neglect meeting together as some are in the habit of doing. And so the reality is that we need in discipleship to be coming together, not staying, on our own or being isolated, but looking for ways by which we can come together. And doing that in small group Bible studies, doing that in a large group context where we're exposed to teaching and worship and these things, but where we are not to neglect that. But that's part of what community is all about. And then the third let us is found in that last phrase, and let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. So part of our coming together in community isn't just to say the hard thing like spurring one another on, but it's to come to be an encourager, to say the thing that might help someone just go further in their walk with God. I love a sister verse in a few chapters back in Hebrews 3:13, and it says this. It says, encourage one another daily as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. There it says that we're to come together to encourage one another. Why? Because we are easily deceived by sin. And what does that do? A hardening of our heart towards God. A friend of mine says that mold only grows in the darkness. And when we isolate ourselves from one another, we're only asking for this process of sin having its way to bring a hardening in our own heart. So Hebrews 10:24 and 25, let us spur one another on. Let us not neglect meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. This is the heart of community.